The moment you walk into a room, something shifts. It isn't visible, yet people feel it immediately. They sense an energy around you that can't be explained by charm, appearance, or words. It's an aura that carries both mystery and weight, the kind of presence that makes some people lean in while others quietly retreat. Carl Jung studied this hidden force, and in his private reflections, he revealed why it is both a blessing and a danger for those who carry it. Jung believed that true empaths don't just notice emotions, they radiate an energy born from them. He called this the frequency of the wounded healer, a kind of signature forged not in ease or privilege, but in pain. This energy doesn't come from being naturally kind-hearted, it comes from transformation, from turning wounds into wisdom. It is the result of what happens when someone endures suffering and learns to alchemize it into something higher. That is why this aura feels rare. Few people undergo such a process. This energy field, Jung observed, works on many levels at once. When others come near it, they feel soothed, seen, and sometimes even healed, as though the empath's very presence is medicine. Yet, hidden inside this gift is a trap. The same aura that heals also attracts darkness. People seeking comfort are drawn in, but so too are those who feed on it, the manipulative, the draining, the broken souls who take without giving back. The empath becomes a beacon, calling both angels and shadows to their side. Jung warned that when empaths remain unaware of their nature, their energy becomes dangerous. Without understanding, they unknowingly allow themselves to be drained by others, or worse, consumed by their own gift. What was meant to elevate them begins to destroy them. But when they awaken to the truth, this same energy becomes their sovereignty, the mark of a healer who is no longer wounded, but whole. The story of how this aura is born begins in childhood. Many empaths grew up in homes where emotions were unpredictable, even unsafe. To survive, they learned to read the slightest cues, the tension in a parent's voice, the flicker in someone's eyes, the unspoken energy in a room. Long before they could read words, they learned to read feelings. Hypervigilance became their shield, awareness their survival tool. What was once a child's way of staying safe eventually rewired the entire nervous system. This transformation is what Jung meant by alchemy. Out of necessity, the child developed radar that most people never need. Their mirror neurons, the cells that allow us to feel what others feel, became unusually active. Their emotional brain, the limbic system, grew more responsive. Layer by layer, their nervous system reshaped itself into something extraordinary, an antenna tuned to human emotion, sensitive to frequencies others cannot even detect. Modern science has now confirmed what Jung sensed decades earlier. Empaths aren't imagining their gift, their bodies and brains are literally wired differently. They are emotional transmitters and receivers, absorbing the atmosphere around them, amplifying it, and sometimes reflecting it back. That is why people feel lighter in their presence. That is also why some leave them feeling heavy and drained. Jung's most profound insight was that this gift was never random. It was forged in survival, refined through struggle, and made sacred through awareness. Empaths are not fragile souls who simply feel too much. They are survivors who turned pain into perception. But the final step is not to remain a wounded healer. It is to understand, claim, and master this aura. Only then does the empath become sovereign, no longer at the mercy of the energy they carry, but in command of it. The moment an empath enters a room, something unspoken begins to unfold. People notice without knowing why. There is a quiet shift in the air, a subtle vibration that stirs beneath the surface of ordinary interaction. Dr. Elaine Aron's research shows that highly sensitive people process the world differently, their brains fire more intensely in the regions tied to awareness, emotion, and empathy. Yet Carl Jung saw a deeper truth. He believed this difference in perception creates an actual energetic field, something invisible but real, that other people can sense the instant they come near it. Jung discovered that this field does more than simply absorb impressions. It functions like a kind of psychological radar. It doesn't just notice energy, it transforms it. The empath unconsciously begins what could be described as an excavation, an energetic archaeology. Without effort, they dig beneath the surface of smiles and polite words, sensing what lies buried, grief unspoken, anger hidden behind control, fear buried beneath pride. They touch the emotional truth that even the person themselves may not fully recognize. Jung noticed this process unfolding in stages. First comes the scan, a subtle tuning into the unconscious patterns that shape behavior. An empath feels these patterns as emotional signatures, what Jung called feeling-toned complexes. Before a person has admitted their sorrow, before they have even named their rage, the empath feels it vibrating in the air between them. Then comes absorption. Because their psyche grew porous for survival reasons, the empath does not only detect these emotions, they take them in. Jung called this participation mystique, a state in which one unconsciously merges with another's psychological world. The empath begins carrying emotions that are not their own. But the process does not stop there. Something alchemical begins to happen. Through what Jung described as the transcendent function, the empathic nervous system reshapes this raw emotional material. Jung also realized that empaths are not only processors of emotion but magnets for it. Their aura generates powerful attraction patterns that draw people in without either party fully understanding why. Some who arrive carry shadows that hunger for release. The wounded child, still aching for the unconditional acceptance they never received, finds comfort in the empath's presence. The shadow projector, unable to face their own buried emotions, instinctively looks for someone to hold them instead. The energy vampire, whose own empathic nature was stunted, has learned to survive by feeding on others' vitality. All of these are pulled toward the empath with invisible threads. Yet not everyone who is drawn carries shadow alone. Some arrive carrying light. The conscious seeker, intent on their own inner growth, senses in the empath a mirror and a partner in evolution. The authentic self, longing to live without masks, feels permission in the empath's presence to feel deeply and openly. These souls resonate rather than drain. They do not feed, they grow, and in growing, they allow the empath to grow as well. The danger is that the aura attracts both kinds of people, those who heal and those who consume. Without discernment, the empath cannot tell the difference. They pour their energy into those who are not ready, exhausting themselves in a cycle that leaves them depleted. This is what Jung hinted at when he spoke of the wounded healer, the paradox of carrying a gift that can either elevate or destroy, depending on awareness. The empath's journey, then, is not simply to carry this aura, but to learn what it is and how it works. To remain unconscious is to drown beneath the weight of other people's emotions. To awaken is to stand in sovereignty, no longer at the mercy of attraction patterns, but aware of who to invite close and who to hold at a distance. Jung understood that the empath's sensitivity was never an accident. Some people live their whole lives wondering why they seem to attract extremes, souls who are deeply spiritual, seeking wisdom, and others who are deeply troubled, carrying chaos wherever they go. If you've noticed this in your own life, it's not random. Jung believed there is something archetypal happening, what he called the wounded healer constellation. It means your energy carries both the power to spark healing in others and the danger of being consumed by their pain. The way this works is not by you pouring your energy into people, but by resonance. Imagine striking a tuning fork, the sound it makes causes other tuning forks nearby to vibrate at the same frequency. Your presence works in a similar way. When someone with unprocessed wounds enters your space, your empathic energy resonates with them, awakening the possibility of their own healing. They don't borrow your energy, they awaken to their own. That is why some people feel alive and hopeful simply by being around you. But Jung noticed something vital. This resonance only helps others to the extent that you have faced your own shadows. If your wounds remain unintegrated, your aura leaks what could be called bleeding energy. Instead of awakening healing in others, you unconsciously attract people who will replay your original pain with you: narcissists, manipulators, emotional vampires, people who always need saving. The signature of your unhealed pain pulls them in like a magnet, and you end up in cycles that feel all too familiar. Every person who comes into your life is, in a sense, a mirror. Jung once wrote that whatever irritates us in others can help us understand ourselves. For the empath, this is a sacred truth. The ones who drain you show you how you drain yourself. The ones who cannot accept your love reveal the places within you where you still struggle to love yourself. The ones who reject or abandon you reflect the parts of you that still carry self-abandonment. Life surrounds you with teachers disguised as relationships, and your aura ensures you cannot escape the lessons you most need. Jung's answer to this paradox was not to shut down or run away, but to engage in conscious suffering. That means letting yourself feel the weight of your wounds instead of numbing them or avoiding them. Pain, when resisted, festers, but when felt, it transforms. Through this process, wounds stop being open cuts and begin to become scars, marks of wisdom rather than sites of bleeding. Once you've walked through that fire, your aura no longer carries wounded healer frequency but sovereign healer frequency. You still feel deeply, but you are no longer consumed. You still attract people, but now you draw on those who are ready to take responsibility for their healing, not those who demand you carry it for them. Jung also saw that an empath's aura functions like a psychological mirror. When conscious people encounter you, they feel peace, safety, and recognition. They experience what could be called resonance of truth, the joy of being seen and accepted as they really are. Around you, they can breathe more freely, because your energy confirms the light already alive within them. But for those still buried in their own shadow, your presence is unsettling. You reflect back to them the parts of themselves they have been running from. This creates discomfort, even hostility. They may project their shadow onto you, accuse you of things you have not done, or try to dim your light so they do not have to face their own darkness. This is not really about you, it is about the image of themselves they cannot bear to see, which your aura reflects too clearly. This is why empaths live with extremes. Some people are irresistibly drawn to you, almost intoxicated by the comfort and hope you radiate. Others seem inexplicably threatened or hostile, even if you've done nothing to provoke them. You are the mirror that either awakens or unsettles. You wake in the morning and the air already feels heavy. Before you've even checked your phone or spoken to anyone, you can sense it, something isn't quite right in the world. A kind of sadness hums in the background of your mind, and you don't know why. Later, you'll see the news and understand that there's been a tragedy across the globe. But in this quiet space between waking and knowing, you realize that your nervous system has already picked it up. It's as if your body is an antenna, tuned to a signal far bigger than your personal life. Later that day, you meet a friend who's been working on themselves. The moment they sit across from you, their shoulders drop. They smile and say, "I always feel peaceful with you." Their words sink deep because you can feel it too. The space between you feels clean, balanced, alive. Being with them doesn't drain you, it fills you. You leave the conversation lighter than when you arrived, as if each of you had reflected back the other's hidden light. The next day, you attend a family gathering. At first, it seems fine, small talk, laughter, food on the table. But then someone turns their attention on you. They've spent years pushing down their pain, refusing to face it, and your presence unsettles them. Your sensitivity feels like a mirror they don't want to look into. "You're too much," they say sharply. Or maybe they roll their eyes, dismissing your words, trying to provoke you. They don't realize it, but they're trying to drag you into their shadow so they don't have to face it themselves. By the time you leave, you feel drained and heavy. Nothing visible happened, but you know exactly what occurred. You reflected back what they didn't want to see, and they punished you for it. Another time, someone calls you in the middle of the night. Their voice is frantic. They tell you about the disaster of the day, the pain, the crisis, the drama. They've done this before, more times than you can count. Each time, you've listened, comforted, and carried their weight. At first, you believed you were helping. But now you're beginning to notice a pattern. Nothing ever changes. The crises recycle. The storylines repeat. And the only constant is you, the one absorbing it, the one who always answers, the one who feels emptier after every conversation. These are the energy vampires Jung described, people who unconsciously assign you the role of emotional caretaker. To them, you are the container for everything they don't want to hold. And this is where the real difficulty lies. You want to help, to be kind, to be open. But when you finally whisper, "No, I can't do this right now," it feels almost unbearable. The guilt rises, but so does the truth. You're not just protecting yourself, you're forcing them to face what they've been avoiding. And not everyone will thank you for it. Some will lash out. Some will disappear. But without that boundary, you drown in pain that was never yours to carry. As days turn into weeks, you start to see a larger pattern. It isn't just about individuals, it's about the whole field of humanity. Crowded spaces leave you restless, not because of the noise but because you feel the weight of hundreds of nervous systems buzzing with fear, grief, and longing. Global events strike you like waves, long before you even know what's happening. It's not imagination. Jung believed empaths are connected to the collective unconscious, that vast ocean of human memory, shadow, and archetypes. You are not only sensing people, you are sensing humanity itself. This connection is your greatest gift and your greatest burden. It allows you to touch universal wisdom, to feel truths that others numb themselves against. Jung warned that this danger could swell into psychic inflation, the belief, buried but powerful, that you are somehow responsible for healing all of it. The truth is, you can't. No one can. What you can do is remember what you are: a mirror, a resonator, a being who reflects truth back to others. Around you, people either awaken or resist. Some rise and remember who they are. Some push you away because they aren't ready to face themselves. Some try to drain you because your energy feels like a lifeline. And the world itself hums through you, pressing its secrets into your bones. Your task is not to save everyone, not to carry what doesn't belong to you, but to stand in your own wholeness. When you do, you shift from a wounded healer who bleeds into every encounter to a sovereign healer whose presence alone awakens what others had forgotten. You do not heal them by giving away your energy. You heal them by showing, through resonance, that transformation is possible. And this is why your path is both beautiful and difficult. Because you will always be a mirror. To some, you will be a sanctuary. To others, a threat. And to the world itself, you will always be a quiet antenna, feeling the pain before it breaks, carrying wisdom before it's spoken, and walking the line between what belongs to you and what belongs to the collective whole. Most people move through life without realizing that they are shaped by unseen patterns within them, but Jung taught that you cannot heal or transform what you do not first recognize. For empaths, this truth is even more important, because their experience of the world is unlike anyone else's. They don't just feel emotions, they absorb them. They don't just notice what's spoken, they sense what lies beneath the words. Information comes to them in ways that others might not even believe are possible. Many empaths think this is a weakness, but Jung saw it as something much more refined, a heightened form of perception. A different way of knowing that could be developed into a strength. The first step begins with awareness. Imagine an empath moving through a day, perhaps beginning the morning with lightness and calm, but after an encounter at work or even just stepping into a crowded place, their energy feels drained, their mood shifted, though nothing bad has been said aloud. This shift is not random, it is the cost of being open. Jung would say this person is unconsciously paying out energy without knowing it. The path forward begins by tracking these changes. When you notice who lifts you up, who leaves you heavy, which places inspire you and which ones weaken you, you start to see the pattern. Jung called this accounting for your energy, and it is like keeping track of invisible currency. Only when you see where it goes can you decide how to use it. But there are deeper forces at work too, ones that live inside. Jung believed that we all operate through archetypal patterns, ancient blueprints of behavior and belief. For many empaths, one of the strongest is the caretaker or wounded healer. They feel they are only valuable when they are helping, fixing, or healing others. They may even feel guilty when they put themselves first, or they may find themselves surrounded by people who always seem to be in crisis. These are not accidents, they are signs that unconscious patterns are steering the ship. Jung's method for transforming this was called active imagination, which means turning inward, needing these archetypes as living presences within, asking them where they came from, what they want, and how they can be transformed. Through this process, an empath slowly begins to see that their urge to save others was not their true calling but a story woven long ago, often out of pain. As this recognition deepens, boundaries become the next lesson. Most people think of boundaries as hard walls, but Jung saw them as living membranes, flexible and intelligent. For empaths, this is crucial, because their challenge is not just saying no, it is sensing when someone else's emotions have slipped past their defenses and begun to feel like their own. They learn that true boundaries are energetic. They can feel the moment their aura is invaded, the moment their energy begins to leak. And they can learn to restore balance, to cleanse themselves of what does not belong to them. Jung practiced what he called psychological hygiene, daily rituals that help you return to your own center. For one person, this might mean walking in the woods, for another, it might mean journaling, meditating, creating art, or simply resting in silence. These practices are not luxuries, they are survival tools, ways to return to the authentic self beneath the weight of what has been absorbed. With time and practice, something extraordinary begins to emerge. The empath starts to shift from unconscious empathy to what Jung called conscious empathy. Instead of being swept away by every wave of emotion around them, they begin to choose when and how to engage their gift. They can sit with someone in pain without drowning in it. They can offer comfort without losing themselves. They learn to hold opposites at once, to be both open and protected, both sensitive and strong, both compassionate and boundaried. This ability to balance opposites, Jung believed, was the mark of true transformation. As this inner shift takes root, the outer world begins to change as well. The empath's aura, once leaking energy everywhere, becomes radiant and contained. No longer defined by the wounded healer frequency, they begin to embody what can be called the sovereign healer. Their energy is no longer shaped by unconscious compulsion but guided by conscious choice. People still feel their presence deeply. But now it awakens something different. Instead of creating dependency, their presence sparks empowerment. Others leave their company not weighed down with borrowed strength, but inspired to find their own. The change is unmistakable. The people who once drained them, the energy vampires, the constant takers, start to fall away, because there is nothing left in the empath's field that says, I am available to be drained. In their place, new kinds of people arrive, those Jung called individuated souls, men and women who have faced their own shadows and stand in their own wholeness. Relationships become equal, nourishing, alive with shared energy rather than one-sided giving. And perhaps the most beautiful part is how effortless healing becomes. The sovereign empath no longer heals through struggle or sacrifice. Their very presence becomes a healing field, radiating wholeness, showing others by example that wounds can transform into wisdom, sensitivity into strength, pain into purpose. Without trying, they become living proof that integration is possible. Jung believed that empaths carry a role not just for themselves but for the world. Humanity, he said, is on a path of collective individuation and evolution toward greater wholeness. Empaths, with their rare sensitivity, serve as bridges in this process, helping others reconnect with emotions they have long denied. In a world numbed by noise, they are reminders of what it means to feel deeply, to see beyond the surface, to transform pain into wisdom. When they live not as wounded healers but as sovereign healers, their gift becomes more than personal, it becomes a necessity for the collective. There was once a soul who carried a sensitivity so rare that others could feel it before a single word was spoken. When they walked into a room, silence seemed to shift. Some people felt lighter, calmer, as if a weight had been lifted from their chest. There was once a soul who carried a sensitivity so rare that others could feel it before a single word was spoken. When they walked into a room, silence seemed to shift. Some people felt lighter, calmer, as if a weight had been lifted from their chest. Others felt exposed, uneasy, even hostile, as though standing too close to a mirror they weren't ready to look into. This soul never asked for such power. It had been forged in the fires of pain, shaped by childhood environments where safety depended on reading every tone of voice, every flicker of expression, every invisible change in the air. What had once been survival grew into something sacred, a gift Jung described as the aura of the wounded healer. But this aura was not just a glow of kindness. It was a field, alive and resonant, like a mirror for the unseen. It scanned beneath smiles and masks, attuned itself to the grief people had buried, the rage they swallowed, the fears they tried to ignore. Without trying, the empath absorbed this raw emotional material, and through some unconscious alchemy, began to process it. People often left their presence lighter, not knowing why, unaware that their shadow had just been carried and transmuted by another's nervous system. Yet there was danger in this gift. For those unwilling to face their shadow, the empath's aura was unbearable. These people would criticize, provoke, or attempt to pull the empath into drama, hoping to silence the mirror they did not want to see. And then there were those who fed on it, the energy vampires, who saw in the empath an endless reservoir to draw from, creating crises and playing the role of the helpless victim until the healer was left hollow. The empath found themselves torn between light and shadow, not knowing why they attracted both seekers and destroyers, not realizing that their aura was calling both equally. Jung understood this mystery. He warned of the savior complex, the hidden belief that one must carry and heal everyone's pain. The journey forward required courage. The empath had to reclaim their power from old patterns, the caretaker roles, the guilt, the constant need to rescue. They had to learn the art of boundaries, not as walls but as living membranes that allowed love to flow in while keeping manipulation out. They had to practice what Jung called psychic hygiene, rituals of cleansing that restored them to their true frequency, meditation, time in nature, creating beauty, writing, anything that returned them to themselves. And when they stood face to face with manipulation, Jung taught them to call upon the archetypes within. The warrior for strength, the wise elder for clarity, the sovereign for unshakable calm. These inner figures were not fantasies but dimensions of their own psyche, waiting to be summoned when needed. With these allies, they no longer collapsed under the weight of others. The transformation was subtle at first. The aura grew steadier, brighter, no longer leaking energy but radiating wholeness. The wounded healer became the sovereign healer. People still felt the empath's presence as profoundly as before, but something had changed. Instead of draining them, it awakened them. The aura no longer whispered, "I will carry you." It declared, "You can carry yourself." The old attraction pattern faded. Vampires and parasites drifted away. In their place came seekers who had done their own inner work, individuals ready to meet the empath as equals. These connections were mutual, nourishing, alive with true exchange. The empath discovered something astonishing. Healing no longer required effort. Simply being, simply radiating wholeness, created a field in which others remembered their own. The empath no longer healed from their wounds. They healed from their integration. Their very presence became a living proof that pain could be transmuted into wisdom, sensitivity into strength, and depth into power. And so the empath stepped into their true role, not as a martyr, not as a savior, but as a bridge of consciousness. In a world that had forgotten how to feel, they reminded others that it was safe to feel and still remain whole. Their sensitivity, once a burden, became their crown. They no longer apologized for it, no longer dimmed it, no longer carried what was never theirs. They radiated it consciously, a light that did not burn out, a mirror that reflected both shadow and light, and a path for others to find themselves. There comes a point in the life of every empath when the weight of their own heart feels unbearable. From the earliest moments, you may have carried emotions that were not your own, absorbing the silent pains of others, feeling storms that had no name. At first, this sensitivity feels like a curse. It makes you question your strength, wonder why you cannot simply let things go as others seem to do so easily. But this is only the beginning of the story. Carl Jung knew that the empath's path is not meant to end in overwhelm, it is meant to lead to transformation. You see, the gift of empathy was forged in fire. It was shaped in moments when survival required you to sense the feelings and needs of those around you. It was polished each time you offered comfort, even when no one asked. It deepened when you took on burdens that were never yours to carry. And yet, this was only preparation. For Jung, the wounded healer archetype was never the final identity of the empath. It was the doorway. The true calling lies beyond, in the sovereign healer, the one who knows how to hold immense feeling without being consumed by it, the one who can touch the deepest pain and still stand whole. This shift is what makes your aura rare. Not because others cannot feel, but because few people learn to master their sensitivity. Many remain trapped in the cycle of absorbing and suffering, never realizing that empathy is not meant to control them, it is meant to be wielded with consciousness. When an empath learns this, the transformation is unmistakable. Their energy no longer leaks away into the wounds of others. Instead, it radiates wholeness. And people feel it. They sense not just comfort, but empowerment. In your presence, they no longer cling to you for rescue, they awaken to their own capacity to heal. Jung called this conscious feeling, the ability to feel deeply while staying rooted in yourself. Imagine walking into a room and sensing everything: fear, joy, hidden grief, unspoken longings, and instead of drowning in it, you choose how to respond. You are not at the mercy of the emotional tide. You are the still point in the center of it. That is when your aura shifts from the frequency of the wounded healer to the sovereign healer. And when this happens, something extraordinary begins to unfold. Old patterns dissolve. The energy vampires, the ones who always needed you to fix them, drift away because your field no longer resonates with their hunger. In their place, new souls arrive, people who have done their own inner work, who can meet you as equals, who exchange energy with you in ways that nourish rather than deplete. This is what Jung meant when he spoke of individuation, relationships built not on unconscious need, but on conscious wholeness. The change does not stop with you. Jung noticed that when one person in a family or community reaches this level of integration, ripples spread outward. Others begin to feel permission to stop numbing themselves, to stop pretending, to face their feelings with honesty. Your aura becomes a mirror, reflecting to others the possibility that they too can feel everything and still remain whole. This is the true healing mission of the empath, not to carry the pain of the world, but to show the world it can carry itself. In Jung's vision, empaths are not anomalies, they are pioneers. They are the early signs of what humanity is becoming, a species able to hold its shadows and its light at the same time, to embrace depth without collapsing under it. He saw sensitivity not as weakness, but as an evolutionary edge. And so, your gift is not here to break you. It is here to guide the collective toward its next stage of consciousness. But to live this gift, you must be willing to face the most difficult task of all, to be authentic. To stop hiding your depth to make others comfortable. To stop apologizing for the intensity of your feelings. To stop dimming your light so others won't feel small. Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. For the empath, this means becoming the sovereign of your own sensitivity. It means shining consciously rather than shrinking, loving fully without losing yourself, and serving others without betraying your own soul. Your story is not about being broken. Your story is about alchemy, taking pain and transforming it into wisdom, turning wounds into gateways, turning sensitivity into a superpower. The world does not need you to carry its burdens. The world needs you to embody what is possible when an empath claims their full power. When you do, you become a living bridge between the visible and the invisible, between what people know of themselves and what they have forgotten. This is why your aura is rare. Not because empathy is scarce, but because the courage to wield it consciously is. The moment you step into this truth, you are no longer just surviving your gift. You are radiating it. And in that radiance, you help awaken the same possibility in others, not by fixing them, but by showing them that wholeness is possible. This is the path from wounded healer to sovereign healer.